I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Glendora City Council on Tuesday, June 28th. Tonight, 4 council members are present here in the chambers. Councilmember Mendel Thompson is joining us via Zoom, so he is present via electronics. And with that, I will ask if we can have the city attorney read the closed session title into the record before I open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and ladies and gentlemen. City Council has 2 items on its closed session agenda. The first is a discussion pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 of the process to be utilized to conduct the annual performance evaluation for the positions of city manager and city attorney. The second is a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 or D3 and E1 because there is a significant exposure to litigation in one case. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I will open the public comment. Do we have any emails for closed session items?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this time, we received no requests via the public comment email to give comment.
Or do we have anyone on Zoom wishing to speak or any speaker cards that have been submitted?
No speaker cards have been received and no requests via the Zoom meeting.
Okay, hearing none, then I will close public comment and convene us into closed session at 6:01 p.m.
Mendel, if you just hang on, they'll do a breakout room for you.
Good evening. I'd like to reconvene our closed session into open session and ask the city attorney to report out, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen who are participating in person and virtually. All 5 members of the council participated in this closed session pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. We had 1 member of the council participate via Zoom, which is allowed by law. 2 items on the closed session agenda. The first was to discuss the process by which the city council will conduct the annual performance evaluation for the positions of city manager and city attorney. The authority to meet in closed session to discuss this process is Government Code Section 54957. No reportable action was taken. Questions were asked and answered, and a presentation was given by staff and a member of the council regarding a recommended process. Second, the city council met in closed session to discuss the facts and circumstances which may give rise to exposure to litigation in 1 or more cases. The authority to meet in closed session is Government Code Section 54956.9D2 or D3 and E1. City Attorney's Office provided a privileged and confidential briefing. Questions were asked and answered. No reportable action was taken, nor was any solicited. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that, I will close the closed session at 7:03 and convene the regular meeting of the city council. Tonight, 4 council members are present. Mr. Thompson is joining us via Zoom. He is practicing good COVID guidelines, and so therefore is joining us electronically this evening. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Associate Pastor Elvin Miranda of the Glendora Alliance Church, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by our Chief of Police, Matt Egan. Pastor Miranda.
Oh, will you all bow your heads with me tonight as we ask the Lord's blessing upon the proceedings here tonight? Lord, we thank you for this beautiful city that you've given us, Lord, this beautiful city that we call Glendora. And we're proud of it, and we're blessed to be members and constituents and homeowners here. And thank you for that truth, Lord. And Lord, tonight, as we are convening here with the city council meeting, Lord, we just thank you for the leadership that you have provided in the council members and the city manager, Mr. Raymond, because you say in your holy word that all leadership is put in place by you. And so I pray your blessing on Mayor Davis, on council members Alois, Thompson, Boyer, Fredendahl, and thank you, Lord. And I just pray that you bless them tonight and every night with wisdom, with discernment and direction to lead and make decisions for the good of every citizen in the city of Glendora. And may there be productive conversations here tonight. May the business of the city take place. And Lord, I just pray that every discussion and every decision that is made would be perfectly in line with your holy word, the Bible, and what makes good common sense. And we ask your blessing upon this time in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Good evening. Can you please stand? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please take your seats.
Thank you, Pastor Miranda, and thank you, Chief Egan. That takes us to reordering of or additions to the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move item 19, agenda item to right after public comment, please.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Any objection? Okay, if not, then we will reorder the agenda. With that, that takes us to public comment. We invite the public to speak for 3 minutes. We will invite you based upon the speaker cards, and then also we will invite anyone who wishes to speak via Zoom. And also we will read into the record any emails that we have received after 5 p.m. With that, I call our first speaker forward, Jonathan Hatami.
Madam Mayor, as a point of order, are we going to be able to have the public be able to speak on item 19 as a separate item or just only on public comment?
No, during public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Jonathan Atami. I am a Deputy District Attorney. I'm a child abuse prosecutor. I've been a child abuse prosecutor and a Deputy District Attorney for 16 years. I do want to talk to you about a few things, but what I'm doing here is just asking you as members of this community to vote yes on your on something that's very important to, I think, all of us, which is your no confidence vote in George Gascon. I will tell you, when George Gascon first took office on December 7th, 2020, as a child abuse prosecutor, there were some things that I had to do, or he told me to do, and our office to do. One of them was for children who had broken arms or fractured ribs, there's a great bodily injury allegation. He told us we couldn't charge that. For children who were tortured and murdered, there's a special circumstance allegation. He told us we couldn't charge that. For somebody who was a police officer for 30 years and a district attorney for 8 years, I have a really hard time with somebody coming into our office and saying that. For your specific city, regarding quality of life crimes, such as solicitation for prostitution, criminal threats, disturbing the peace, resisting arrest, George Gascon has a whole list of misdemeanors that he doesn't want to charge. And I think as a city, you need to look at, if you want to rehabilitate, reform, and help individuals in those type of situations, if you don't even charge them, you can't give somebody rehabilitation. You can't give somebody diversion. You can't help somebody. So individuals who are addicted to drugs, if you don't charge them at all in our system, you can't help them, because what we need is the state and the courts to monitor them, to put them into programs and to help them and to make sure that they get better. And then there's something that happens if you don't, which is the courts can impose jail or some type of punishment. But to be able to get into these type of programs, to be able to be rehabilitated, to be able to get better, you have to charge somebody first. George Gascon's policies don't charge anybody regarding these quality of life crimes. And lastly, I want to talk to you about somebody named Desiree Andrade. Her son, Julian Andrade, lived here in this community. He was taken from this community and brutally murdered. Desiree Andrade has been fighting for her son for 18 months during these 2 recalls of George Gascon. George Gascon removed certain enhancements and allegations in her case. Desiree can't be here tonight, but she asked me to speak for her and her son. Julian was a part of this community, and he deserves justice, and he deserves his case to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So I'm asking that all of you vote yes to say you have no confidence in the elected district attorney, George Gascon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tommy. I would like to call Emma Rivas.
Hello, everyone. I'm a parent to a murdered son, and I was affected by Gascon's policies. When I got the first phone call in 2021 from my prosecutor saying that they were going to drop the gang enhancements, the parolee with a gun, those are 2 enhancements that were very important on my son's case, because that would put the killer to my son 20 years added to the 25. So we were looking at 45 years. Now with 80% served, we're looking at 33, but with Gascon's policies, the guy that murdered my kid will be out in 12 years from today. And I'm not okay with that. And none of you should be okay with that. 12 years, 18 years for murdering someone is not enough time. And I don't have no empathy for murderers, and they don't have any for you either. And Gascon is not doing his job as an elected official. You guys are all elected officials. You're representing your city. So you need to vote yes on the no confidence, George Gascon, because the crime is going everywhere. You have a beautiful city. I'm not from the city, but I came to represent Desiree and other parents that lost their children. Gascon is being too lenient with all criminals. We cannot have pedophiles running around loose. We cannot have murderers only serving 18 years. And if you're okay with that, invite them to go live with you. But how about the rest of us? You know, you guys are elected officials too. Remember that. You were elected to represent your city. So please think about it when you're voting. Vote yes to the no confidence George Gascon. You guys are elected officials, just like Gascon. So remember that when you vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Ryan.
Okay, I got to learn to speak real quick here. My speech is much longer. My name is Bob Ryan. On December 11th, 2017, my son was brutally murdered, along with his friend, Jacob Dominguez. It was an armed robbery. My son had cashed a check for $4,000. The gang member saw the $4,000, shot my son once in the head, many times in the torso, shot the other young man right in the head because he was a witness. The young man was Jacob Dominguez, 18 years old. He was set to go in the Marine Corps very soon after that. His life is over. My son's life is over. I can't bring my son back. I can't bring Jacob Dominguez back. I can't bring Andrade's child back. But what I can do and what you can do is help get rid of this evil man. That's all. You have to vote yes. This man has no consequences. In society, you must have consequences. Whether you're raising your child or whether society, you need consequences for bad behavior. You know, this guy, I mean, he just takes in, he's a public defender. Okay, we had Jackie Lacey said our case was a death penalty case. Now here we are 4.5 years later with no trial because of George Gascon. Gascon wants to take off the gang enhancement. He wants to take off the multiple felony enhancement, and he wants to take off the gun. And he also carjacked a van, threw the two boys' bodies in the van, drove to Victorville. We found him in the dirt 8 days later. Gascon is aiding the public defender's office at this very moment. Never has a prosecutor aided a public defender. He wants to take the enhancements off. That's to be the responsibility. The public defender should fight for that, not Gascon. Gascon is the greatest public defender going in LA County right now. We need consequences. This city, this county is dangerous. Everywhere you go, every day you turn on the news, what do you see? Death, death, death. These gang members are getting brutal. They're recruiting every 17-year-old they can because Gascon says, if you kill 10 people before you're 18, I'll let you out by the time you're 23. There was a case not long ago, 2 6-year-old boys raped and murdered. Gascon says, I'll let him out when he's 23. At 23, he's going to go looking for 2 more little boys. He has blood on his hands. That man needs to go. And I really ask you, please, please give us the vote of no confidence. And that's all I can say. I'm so tired of it. It's been 4.5 years and no trial. Now we won in the appellate court. Now he's taken us to the California Supreme Court and trying to take off those enhancements off of our case that we were originally put on there. So please, thank you so much and sign for the recall. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John Harold.
Good evening. My name is John Harold, and I'm here tonight because I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that my city, the city of Glendora, is going to be the last city in this area to vote for this. I appeared in front of you on Zoom when this thing first started. Now, I was a Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney for 37 years. I was a JAG officer with the California Guard for 15 years. I served as a special Deputy Attorney General for 7 years. I know the courts, and I warned you at the time how bad this guy was. And what really bothers me, and I've told a number of you this, my wife Lori was born and raised in Glendora. I raised my 3 daughters here, 2 of which have become Deputy District Attorneys, Orange County and San Bernardino. I wouldn't let them go to LA County because how bad it was. But what bothers me is my middle daughter, Jackie, who called in here a number of times. Her name was Jackie Aaron. And she called in and asked you to do something about the quality of life here in Glendora. She complained about the homeless people, the troubles that she was having walking with her children. and she asked you and nothing. So she moved. She moved out of Glendora with my grandchildren to Upland because she feels safer in Upland with that district attorney, who, by the way, is a great district attorney. And she knows there that the police are given the support of the council so that they can do something. They have the support of the council to do their job. What bothers me even more is on the way here, I passed near my house, I sent you a picture. Gang graffiti, less than 2 blocks from my house. When I sat there, that never would have happened. If it did, it was removed within 24 hours and it didn't happen again. The quality of life of Glendora. Jackie has left her children here in Glendora. I begged her to, and her children are going to Sunrise Christian. At Sunrise Christian, she called the police because she saw a homeless guy with his shopping cart directly over the wall, which is about this high, where the 2-year-olds play. She was worried. Don't blame her. Daughter of a district attorney, sister of 2 district attorneys. So she called the police because, ladies and gentlemen, what happened right down the street from there in the park in San Dimas? We lost one of our citizens who was merely walking her dog and she was killed. Do I have to remind the 5 of you what happened in Texas? Minutes matter, particularly when it's dealing with children. We have to be more aggressive and we have to be more responsive. And the reason why, our cops are wonderful. I've known most of them since they were rookies. I knew some people when they were explorers. And they're great, but they have to have the support of the council to do their job, to keep the citizens of Glendora safe. Jackie moved. She's now living in Upland, and I've lost my grandchildren. It's a lot more difficult to see them than it is when they were here in Glendora. Vote 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harold. Lori Harold.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lori Harold. I'm a lifelong resident of Glendora, as John said. In fact, this was the first public library. And I used to come to this room to check out books when I was a kid. As I said, I've lived here all my life. I'm here to support the not only Recall Gascon movement, but also that you 5-0 vote for a vote of no confidence against George Gascon. The reason I say that, I'll give you a quick example. That recently the 2 El Monte police officers that were murdered, and El Monte's not that far away from us, it's the San Gabriel Valley. Those 2 police officers were murdered and they didn't have to be murdered. The criminal that murdered them was a El Monte Flores gang member. He had tattoos all over his face. It was known he was El Monte Flores gang member. He was arrested before that crime occurred because he was a felon carrying a gun, convicted felon carrying a gun. If there had been a gang unit, he would have never been allowed to be out. He would have been prosecuted and kept in custody. And those 2 El Monte police officers would be alive today. And that's a living example of George Gascon. So I would ask the 5 of you to vote 5-0 to support their movement tonight. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kathy Caddy.
Good evening, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Kathy Cady, and I am a retired deputy district attorney. I was a DA for over 30 years in Los Angeles County. The last 1.5 years, however, what I've been doing is pro bono work representing murder victims' families who have been devastated by Gascon's policies. And I've had the honor and privilege of representing over 100 murder victims' families, many of whom are from the San Gabriel Valley and this community. When Gascon was elected, right after swearing to uphold the law, he issued policies that violate the law, and courts have now told him that his policies violate the law. But he continues to go forward with these policies that are having really damaging and devastating consequences on our communities and on victims of crime. So some of those policies you may know about, the enhancements. You also may know that he will not allow prosecutors to attend parole hearings. So murder victims' families have to go to these parole hearings on their own. He also will not prosecute anyone who is under 18 in criminal court. It doesn't matter how horrible their crime or how many times they've committed a crime. And then, of course, there's his bail policy. So what I can tell you is that because of his policies, again, not the law, but his policies, we know of at least 4 cases where people have been murdered where had the law been followed and his policies had not been in place, we would have 4 people and 4 families who didn't have relatives who had been murdered. So the El Monte officers are 2 examples, but there's another example where his youth justice policy required that someone who had committed 2 first-degree murders be released from custody, and he's gone on to now murder someone else. And because of Gascon's bail policy, there was another horrific tragedy that occurred in South Central where someone should have been in custody because he had 2 outstanding felonies, one of which was for being a felon in possession of a gun. But because of Gascon's policies, that person was out of custody and went on to murder another person. So there are 4 families who are suffering now because of Gascon's policies. So in addition to these policies that he has enacted that are unlawful, he's also really a horrible leader. So 98% of the people who work for him, the prosecutors who work for him, have voted in favor of the recall because he's such a horrible leader. So I know he ran on a reform movement, and many of us, including myself, absolutely believe in rehabilitation and trying to help people do better. But that's not what he's done in our county, and it's not what he's done in your community. So on behalf of the murder victims' families that I've represented from this particular location, including Desiree Andrade, I would ask you to vote no confidence in Gascon. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call Jennifer True to come forward, please.
Good evening. It's good to speak to you. George Gascon campaigned on a criminal justice reform, but what we got was criminal justice dismantling. The anecdotes from the district attorney and law enforcement and victims of crime are really appalling and they're horrific. Unfortunately, most of us do not live with this trauma all the time. But Gascon's policies still significantly impact our little town, and I want to highlight 2 of these tonight. First is the result of Proposition 47, which was deceptively entitled Safe Neighborhoods, which made any theft under $950 a misdemeanor instead of a felony. Now, a misdemeanor is still a crime and it's punishable, but Gascon refuses to charge misdemeanors. So we've all watched as shoplifting and thefts have become ubiquitous in our town. How long can a major retailers absorb this blatant theft? And any of our smaller businesses, which have already been damaged by COVID policies, how long can they withstand a year of continued losses? If these policies are not changed, it's easy to imagine for us in a short time that we'll all be grocery shopping in San Bernardino County. Secondly, among the misdemeanor crimes that Gascon will not prosecute are trespassing, criminal threats, resisting arrest, disturbing the peace, drinking in public, under the influence of drug and alcohol, and loitering. The upshot is increase in homelessness, thefts, drug and alcohol addiction, and drug overdoses. So how do addicts support their addiction? By stealing, shoplifting from our stores, breaking into our houses and cars, any target that's available. These reckless policies have rendered our neighborhoods and our parks unsafe. It is as if we have become the prisoners, taking great care to keep our houses, cars, and property locked up tight. We put in Ring doorbells, alarm systems, and surrounded our homes with cameras. But our vehicles are still not safe sitting in our driveways, and a forgotten bicycle on the front lawn is gone. Gascon promised compassion treatment for addicts and the mentally unbalanced, but the district attorney has no authority to order somebody into rehabilitation. Only the courts have the power to say, son, you got a choice. You can go to rehab or you can go to jail. Even if the homeless, drug, or mental people opt out of rehab, which sometimes they did, jail would provide a few safe nights off the streets, food, showers, delousing, medical treatments, and clean clothes. However, adults cannot get to court without Gascon first filing the charges. This is not compassion, it's codependency. Gascon's policy are aiding, abating destructive behavior and putting our safety in danger. I strongly urge this council to have the courage to take the stand against this malignancy. Stand in support of our police officers who are frustrated trying to do a job to protect the public, but without the backing of the district attorney. Stand in support of our community and join the other communities who said that's enough. This is nonsense. Has time for this nonsense to end. Thank you.
I'd like to invite John Weedman to come forward, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is John Weedman. I've been a resident of Glendora for almost 50 years. And for 35 of those years, I have focused specifically on water application and conservation. Initially, I worked for Rainbird International for 10 years, during which time I learned much about types and applications of landscape irrigation equipment. I later spent 16 years with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, where my specific focus as a senior resource specialist was developing and carrying out landscape water conservation programs. Upon retirement at the end of 2007, I volunteered to be a member of the Glendora Water Commission, on which I served for the next 9 years, ending in 2017. Bottom line, I have background that is pertinent to this discussion. The reason I'm here tonight is that I see almost no written public evidence in Glendora of a dire situation facing all of us, nor do I see a robust water conservation program that educates and helps our residents maximize their water conservation efforts. All of us in this chamber have to give this drought more attention and be more responsive to options to help. We need to come together as a community to do our best to be part of the solution. We cannot solve it all, but we can help. Let me begin by discussing 3 significant issues that are unsettling. Lake Powell and Lake Mead, each reservoir is at 27% of capacity and falling quickly. In a year, Lake Powell's water level could fall to an elevation where its hydroelectric generating capacity ceases. In April of 2022, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation withheld almost 500,000 acre-feet of water at Lake Powell to improve its shutdown, a short-term situation. USBR has given the 7 states taking Colorado River water until August to agree to lower their allocations. If they do not reach a plan that is acceptable to USBR, USBR will step in and reduce allocations by 2 to 4 million acre feet. To put that into perspective, California's current allocation, the largest of all the states, is 4.4 million acre feet. So Southern Californians will likely absorb a greater allocation reduction. Second point, continuation of the drought. In mid-June, both the National Weather Service and the World Meteorological Organization predicted La Nina weather conditions for the Western United States will continue into 22-23. Another source predicted La Nina will likely continue into the winter of 23-24. Given a 20-year drought that we're in, it's not unlikely that that last prediction is going to hold up true. Third point is the enormity of outdoor residential water use. A highly efficient irrigation system will use approximately 6.5 feet of water to raise cool season fescue grass. That's the nice looking stuff. In a 50% efficient water system will use approximately 9 feet.
Mr. Weedman.
Think of that. Oh, I'm over. So, well, there are a lot of other things. Anyway, I wish I had more time, but thank you. And I appreciate, I hope we can somehow come together with a plan that works in Glendora.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else wishing to speak tonight that would like to fill out a speaker card?
Madam Mayor, we received a public comment card with no name. It just says subject general. I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Willett, you can come forward, please.
Thank you, allowing, excuse me. Thank you for allowing me to come before you this evening. Again, Monday, June 27th, the Wall Street ran the article, front page. Pension funds, risky. Similar to the one I brought back around Thanksgiving that got lost or stolen out of the upstairs office. Nobody ever seemed to get. And then I ran across Mr. Thompson. You've already heard that story, and he had no knowledge of it. And then I was a little bit furious. Calipers is getting very dangerous, Michael. Michael, I hope you're looking at it. Your constituents want to know who's going to pay the bills. As you know, Calipers is very close with BlackRock and another company called Engine One. What do they both agree on? No fossil fuel drilling. Oil stays in the ground. Yellen gave a speech, Hannah Yellen. She seemed to be more concerned about fossil fuel drilling than she did about inflation. Lady, you were brought here to deal with inflation, not fossil fuel. Your name isn't part of the crowd. BlackRock, Engine One seemed to have a backdoor access to the White House with Biden. When these people just talked about that particular district attorney they want to recall, there's one particular person who's the powerhouse behind him, deep pockets. I've ran across him a few times. I don't even know if I should say the name, but I know who he is. He's the one who's been funding all those types of district attorneys and those types of people. He's a very wealthy billionaire plus, is the easiest way of saying it, Mr. Soros. We're getting into a point where the Pasadena city manager blasted Calipers. I'll give you a copy, Michael, so don't worry, you'll get a copy. We're in dangerous territory. We can hardly afford anything. When France is going nuclear, Germany is going back to coal-fired power plants. And by the way, there was 2 priests killed in Mexico about a week ago. Last Saturday was their funeral, Michael. Know all about it. And we have to do more. The economy is overheated and was overplayed. Inflation ran up. You can't continue spending and not overheat the economy. Yellen's out to lunch. She cares more about fossil fuel than she does about the economy. Thank you for your time. And
Thank you, Mr. Willett. Do we have anyone on Zoom wishing to speak tonight?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mayor. We do have a participant on Zoom by the name Christian. Christian, you raised your hand. We'll ask you to unmute and you'll be given 3 minutes. Are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you for this time to listen to me. I am also calling in to urge you to vote yes on the no confidence in George Gascon. And I would ask you to join the 35 other cities in LA County. I'm calling as a mother who is concerned about public safety and the protection of our children and the future we're leaving behind for them. As we all know, crime is up. Shootings are up, homicides are up, gang violence, theft, follow home robberies. And, it's very concerning to hear these prison recordings of inmates bragging that they'll get off easy. And one even bragged about getting a tattoo on his face of Gascon's name. So as we know, Gascon is pro-criminal instead of pro-victim. And 98% of deputy district attorneys also voted in no confidence of Gascon. His policies and directives are extremely dangerous. It's difficult for police and sheriff deputies to enforce laws. They are risking their lives each time they arrest someone. And it's a revolving door because they see that same person out the same day, sometimes before they could even finish the paperwork. And as a result, police aren't as proactive anymore. Gascon should work for the public defender's office instead of district attorney. We need a replacement and we need it yesterday. Criminals need consequences or else they'll feel even more emboldened to continue to commit crime. So please vote no confidence in George Gascon.
I ask it to be unanimous, 5-0 to send a strong message, and please stand up for victims and their families. Thank you so much. I yield my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to speak?
Yes, thank you,
Yep.
Mayor. We do have
you.
an additional person that raised their hand, Matt Russell. Matt, we're going to ask that you unmute. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. I too want to speak on to item 19. I too strongly urge a vote of no confidence against the LA District Attorney Gascon. Never before in the history of LA County have we had a district attorney whose sole objective is to defend and shield the activities of violent criminals against the law-abiding citizen. This is absolutely unprecedented. And I too am upset that the city of Glendora is this late to this party. This man, his whole objective is to instill and promote fear, mayhem, death upon the citizenry of LA County, and indirectly a part of that, the city of Glendora. All his actions are intended to support the ever encroaching and increasing reliance on the power of government to again encroach into our everyday lives. It's a matter of furthering control. It's a matter of fear, and it's got to be stopped. I strongly, highly recommend a 5-0 vote of no confidence against District Attorney Gaston. I yield my time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to speak? If so, please use the raise hand icon.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have Sean Cazares who's raised hand. Sean, we're going to ask that you unmute your mic. Are you there?
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
Good
You've got 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
sure. Good evening, City Council, members of the audience. As most of you on that dais know who I am, my name is Sean Casares. I'm a resident of San Dimas. I was hoping that Glendora would be the first to vote no confidence, but it looks like San Dimas took the cake, but that's neither here nor there. It was this month, last year, when the city of San Dimas voted no confidence against Gascon. And I can tell you, seeing John Hatami there, who accepted the invitation from the council as well as the staff, there was one person who didn't accept, well, they did accept the invitation, but then due to some kind of technicality and not wanting to address the people who are very concerned about Gascon's policies, Tiffany Blacknell did not attend the city council that night when the council decided to vote no confidence. I don't know if you reached out to their office, but most likely if they're not in attendance and they didn't accept it, who cares about them? But with the amount of disregard he has to families, victims of families, and so on, the rule of law, there is a strong need for you, our neighbors in the foothills, to join Covina, Laverne, Azusa, and make a strong point in history that Gascon needs to get out for what he's done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to speak at this time?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this time, we have not received additional requests to speak. I do want to announce that we did receive a number of correspondence that was received, made available to the public, incorporated into the agenda packet for this evening, and given to the City Council by the following people: Irma Granger, Cheryl Schmidt, Lacey Levitt, Lois Shade, Tay Eskay, and Danita Beechimp. In addition to that, we did receive one email through the public comment email that was received after 5 p.m. that I will read at this time from a Mr. Sigfredo Villegas. Okay, since Gascon has taken office, I have seen a noticeable increase in lawlessness in LA County, but also in the city of Glendora, most notably the recent attempted murder shooting inside the Vons Market. But additionally, there have been thefts in Glendora that go unreported because victims are often told there is nothing that can be done by police because the DA will not prosecute. Although I disagree with that approach, I understand the frustration the police must feel where they arrest someone for catalytic converter theft and identity theft only to be released on zero bail. To be clear, it is not the job of the police to decide what will be prosecuted or not. They should enforce the law regardless, but I do understand that it is a waste of resource to arrest, process, and document a crime that will be rejected by the DA because of his so-called progressive agenda. DA George Gascon has weakened law enforcement as a whole, and in the process made us all unsafe and at the mercy of the criminals. A vote of no confidence is not only necessary, it is an absolute necessity to send a clear message to this DA that he has failed to protect the people of Glendora and Los Angeles County. This is the council's second opportunity to vote no confidence on DA Gascon. I assure you that we are paying attention this time around.
Thank you. And there are no further emails or Zoom participants.
There are no emails that have been received. No further requests via the Zoom participants to give public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. With that, then I will close the public comment and bring us to the reordered agenda. Item 19, under member agenda items, resolution of a no confidence in Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon, requested by council members Alawas and Boyer. And tonight to give the presentation via Zoom is Assistant City Manager Moises Lopez. So welcome, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. As the mayor indicated, the report before you requests your consideration to adopt a resolution of no confidence in the Los Angeles County District Attorney, Mr. George Gascon. Public safety is and always will be a top priority for the city. It's achieved primarily by the good work of the Glendora Police Department and through its partnership with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Modern policing must be coupled with the meaningful prosecution of offenders in order to provide justice for victims and to serve as a deterrent for future criminal activities. And the district attorney is responsible for that prosecution of criminal violations of both state law and county ordinances, including here in the city of Glendora. Following his election in November of 2020, District Attorney Gascon issued several special directives. Those special directives are noted in the staff report and in the accompanying resolution that outline new policies and procedures which alter the approach undertaken by the District Attorney's Office in the implementation of its statutory duties and responsibilities. Now, the city has actively monitored the impact of the special directives on our community since their issuance. In light of those special directives and the importance of public safety to our community, the City Council directed staff to prepare and send a letter to the District Attorney's Office detailing the city's concerns regarding the impact of those special directives on public safety and on quality of life in Glendora. To be clear, the City Council did not agree with the special directives. The letter provided the city the best approach to detail our concerns and to work directly with the District Attorney's Office to address those concerns in the hope that that would help identify areas of mutual interest and also lay the foundation to advocate for funding from the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors to fund some pilot programs that better address the needs of our community. In response to the city's letter, city staff met with several representatives of the District Attorney's Office where they agreed to collaborate with the city on several fronts, and those included 4 items. 1, they agreed to re-examine rejected cases which could be exceptions to the special directives. 2, recognize that certain repeat offender cases pose a community safety risk and how best to address those cases within the context of those special directives. 3, to create a pathway for certain cases to be filed as exceptions to the special directives. And 4, to maintain regular and active collaboration between the District Attorney's Office and the city. For context, in calendar year 2021, 437 of nearly 2,500 cases submitted to the District Attorney's Office by our police department for filing were rejected. And more than half of those that were rejected based on the special directives. Through the first quarter of this calendar year, nearly half of the cases rejected were also rejected based on the special directives. The district attorney's office subsequently re-examined 23 cases that were previously rejected and resulted in the filing of 4 criminal cases in addition to several others that were handled in traffic court as infractions in lieu of criminal court. To our knowledge, Glendora became the first city in Los Angeles County to establish a course by which exceptions to the special directives could be identified and be able to hold certain offenders accountable. Of the 4 criminal cases that were filed, 1 case was dismissed, 2 cases were used as part of a plea agreement, and the 4th case resulted in the issuance of a warrant for arrest. While some progress was achieved, it was very limited and was by no means widespread. Significant resources were made available to make this limited progress. The police department allocated significant staff time and engaged the services of a consultant to help collect data and prepare case filings for the re-examination of the district attorney's office. Because of this limited progress, the city council subsequently directed staff to schedule this discussion to consider a vote of no confidence in the district attorney and to prepare the corresponding resolution. With that, Mayor, I have concluded my presentation and am prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. I'll bring it back to council. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
You know, this has been a long conversation going on and you know, I was prepared to make some comments, but there's no way I could speak as eloquently or as passionate as the people who spoke here tonight. And thank you for that. We received a number of emails on this subject as well. And I can tell you from my experience sitting up here, this is, I think, the first time I have had 100% of the opinions of the residents of this community all have the same opinion. So I appreciate the passion of the residents and I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Al.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank our Assistant City Manager, Moises Lopez, for putting this together in collaboration with our city attorney and our chief of police. They did an amazing job telling the story. This is what we did. We spent some time doing this, and some folks were not happy about the length of time, but we told the story with the extra mile, as it were, our city staff trying to work through this issue so that when we come to this point, we actually have a much stronger story to tell. And it's much more powerful. For those out there that believe that we shouldn't be taking this vote, I would say that our job here is to inform the public, to let them know what their vote has done in the past and how they can possibly correct it in the future based on our decision here tonight. We have the Powers Act, or the Powers Authority, that gives us the trust and the authority and the responsibility to protect our citizens. And I believe this is what we're doing here this evening. Without law and order, we have chaos, and we can't have chaos in our city. This is just unacceptable. This is no way to live a life. So with that, I will be supporting the vote of no confidence this evening.
Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And I appreciate the leadership that you and our entire team have given to, this. Let me cut right to the chase that I concur with every public speaker that spoke. I endorse this, and yet I am very proud of the position that the council took 11 months ago to attempt to work with this man. As has just been said, it was worthwhile for a period of time, a very short period of time. And we now have the additional truth, the additional facts and data that support what we are doing. We also have heard of the stories that have torn our hearts out, that complement what we have done. It is very sad that as a county, as a state, as a city, a country, that the agenda of one man can come in and disavow laws and the rights of as many people as he has. It is a shame. It speaks to the fact that votes are really important. We all need to vote and be attentive to who we support or not. And so I am very pleased to stand with Michael and Gary, who have just expressed what they are going to do to support what we have written, proposed, and hopefully will act on soon. This is a timely thing. It's a very unfortunate thing, but it's something that the city must in fact do. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Friedendall.
Thank you, Mayor. I too wish to thank all the speakers tonight and the messages we've been getting for the last year. I agree and understand that it is a painful thing to watch and thinking that we should move faster, but I appreciate and respect and had full confidence in the professional direction that our law enforcement agency took to make an attempt to make a difference and not just be a Me Too city, but to gather that information to try to come back with some valid efforts to convince the district attorney's office that maybe they needed to reevaluate their approach. It's discouraging to not see greater results. And I supported that effort to hopefully gain those results. We have not seen those results. Our citizens certainly deserve safety. The victims should not be the victim of the system. So I am in great support and will be voting to move on this vote of no confidence against the district attorney.
I want to join with my colleagues in thanking staff and everyone who has been working through this process these last 11 months. I think we all can agree that our criminal justice system is broken. And unfortunately, the way in which it is tried to be fixed, it was not done in a way that has been constructive by any means. And so even though we have attempted to work with the district attorney's office to try to find a way through all of this, it has not played out. So I compliment everyone for the effort in trying to make this work, trying to find a solution. But I think also has been mentioned tonight, Ms. True mentioned this, that when we vote on propositions as well, we need to be educated. This has been a storm that has continued, starting with Prop 47 and other decisions that the voters have made. So I think that hopefully people will not only look to the district attorney's office, but also look at what you decide to vote on when you vote on those propositions. But it has become very clear by all of the research that our police department has done that if we continue on the course that we are on, it will continue to impact public safety and the quality of life. So it is important that we do send a message that this method and pattern is not working. So
Madam Mayor,
with that, I call for the vote.
I move recommendation 1, a resolution declaring its lack of confidence in Los Angeles County District Attorney Georgia Gascon.
Thank you. If you can use the voting client to do that, please. A second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. I will now open up the vote and I will take a roll call vote for those that are on Zoom. And
I am not getting the voting screen on mine.
okay. I showed you on. We can do an oral roll call.
Yeah,
at
that's
this point,
fine.
if that's
Thank
okay.
you.
Councilmember Alawas,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
Right, that takes us to member statements and reports. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And as you earlier stated, I am in the COVID jail and I am doing very good, very fine, but respectful of our rules. And so I am missing being there with each of you, but thankful that that I'm at the end. So thank you. Just a couple of things, three things. One, I wish everybody a happy 4th. America is still the greatest place that anybody can, live. We're not a perfect place, that is for sure. But we cherish the rights, the freedoms which we have. And I trust that everybody will enjoy the 4th. Make sure that you're safe. Make sure that you celebrate in a very appropriate way. And let's make sure that we don't have any fires or no one gets hurt. Second of all, has been talked about, we are in a severe drought, as we have all felt the rising temps. And I would just encourage us all to be aware of what we can do to make sure that water is used in such a way that it's being used right. Thirdly, the goal line continues to move ahead, as all of you have seen. There's a lot of work being done, very attractive work, good work. But we also know that there's an element here in town, the Foothill and Grand area, that is a interesting place to navigate. And we have been working extremely hard to try to figure out some kind of way to reduce what's going on, and especially to compress the amount of time that is being used to build everything out. And I think we have some good news. And I want for Adam to be able to talk about that. I am thankful that he has been a central part of working with the goal line and all of the staff that's a part of that. So Adam, would you please share what is going on? Thank you.
Sure, be happy to do so really quick. For those of you who've traversed through Grand and Foothill, you know that the traffic patterns are changing sides of the street while allowing traffic in all areas. The current alignment of traffic was originally supposed to be scheduled to continue through April of 2023. After receiving several inquiries, including from members of the council and the public, about ways to expedite the process, we met with the Gold Line Construction Authority, who proposed several options. The one that will go into effect on July 5th will be a closure of Grand Avenue north of Foothill. It allows for east and west traffic, but that closure will last through October 30th of 2021. At which time traffic lanes will be opened, but we will be complete with all of that traffic work by December. The short closure of about 4 months, 3.5 months, will equate to a savings of 4 months on the project in total. So hopefully we can get back to our new normal as quickly as possible on that front. So Grand and Foothill will also have periodic complete closures at night as they move the heavy equipment and false work into place as they begin to set some of the new bridge that's there. So trying to take advantage of the situation, we worked with LA County Fire, our police department, the schools, the hospital, and the retail in that area. The Gold Line has agreed to some additional posting. It will allow access to remain to all the shopping centers. And additionally, they'll put advertisements, we'll pay for advertisements for the businesses in that area. They will be paying for crossing guards to assist when school starts again here at the end of August, early September as well, to ensure that there's a safe path of travel. So I really appreciate the Gold Line here for coming up, providing us multiple options. And the one to help us get 4 months down the road only relates to just a small short-term closure north of Foothill there. And so we look forward to the work being completed there and the bridge being completed as well. Thank you.
Adam, thank you, and appreciate the excellent work that you've you've helped us with there. Madam Mayor, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a little secret, I don't know if I want to tell people because then they're going to be going on my route. But if you're coming from the east, go Vermont. If you're coming from the west, go Barinka, and you miss all the fun at Grand and Foothill. But don't start clogging up my route, okay? Mr. Alawaz.
That is true. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Adam, can you explain a little bit more? We had a public comment about the drought plan that we have that we did a great job in presenting a few meetings ago.
Yeah, so we've had a pretty robust conversation on drought restrictions. Currently, stage 3, we reduce water to 3 days a week. 20% savings residential is about 30 per day per person, and that's in gallons. 30 gallons per person per day is about the savings. We provide some estimated ways to do that, including toilets and shower heads and faucets and reducing watering of grass. There are allowances to water trees as frequently as possible. If you look actually at the front of City Hall, you'll notice our grass is yellow, and there are signs up there that says the yellow grass allows us to continue to water the trees. So noticing that it's a little more difficult. The public comment speaker this evening obviously is very well versed in all things water, and so wanted a little more robust than 20%. So we agreed to talk offline, and he and Chisholm, our assistant director of public works, worked at the same agency for a while. So the two of them will have a robust conversation. So if you have any questions, please head to the website for some comprehensive information. And we look forward to coming back sooner than later with some additional rebate programs, including finding rebate programs where we will work with a contractor to actually do replacement of, for example, low flow toilets in houses. So with zero cost to the homeowner. So we look forward to that coming forward as well.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And those that are interested in the La Colina development, I spoke with the developer this week, and they are working on doing the next level of grading on the northeast section of the property there. Starting towards the end of next month, with the models going up sometime in November. And they're still working with Edison. They have preliminary, plans. They'll get their final plans in October for the realignment and the undergrounding of Sierra Madre. So they're working on that as we speak, and hopefully without any issues with the economy, they'll continue and finish that project forward. Last item, since we're somewhat into silly season with the election and things of that nature, and Adam's going to kick off something on Thursday evening, I want to announce my bid for the election this coming November to keep my seat. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Friedendahl.
Thank you, Mayor. I too want to wish us all a great Independence Day holiday weekend, and hope that we remember to be wise, be safe. Fireworks are not allowed in the city of Glendora, so let's please respect that and be mindful of the temperatures in the fire season. That's very critical. Let's not be in the news. And respecting the water conservation, there is a robust education process out there. We've gotten mailers, magazines, the website on the city social media is very full of information about that. So it's not a secret. We do need to conserve. If you need help, the city is more than welcome to come to your home and offer a survey and help you reduce your water consumption. So just ask, they'll come see you and be friendly about it. So look forward to that. And I believe Mr. Boyer is going to share a little bit about our Field of Heroes program this weekend for the Independence Day holiday. So I won't steal his thunder. Thank you.
Thank you for the lead in. Yeah, this weekend, starting on Friday and Saturday, going through the 4th of July holiday, Glendora Rotary Club will be hosting our annual Field of Heroes flag presentation. It'll be here at City Hall, as well as down at Sunflower School on the corner of Gladstone and Sunflower. So we invite everybody to come and enjoy the flags. We'll be out there, and it's still not too late to sponsor a flag for the hero in your life if you'd like. There will be a ceremony going on at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. And so please feel free, it's here at City Hall. So please feel free to come out and join us for that. We do have a lot of cooperation from the council. I've got, Michael's going to be helping me install flags. David's got the Boy Scouts coming. Karen will be one of our speakers at the ceremony, and Mendel's going to get healthy and be out there as well. So you'll see all of us, as well as Assemblywoman Blanca Rubio will be there. So it'll be a good time for us to celebrate without catching anything on fire. And for the first time, we don't have to worry about killing the grass in front of City Hall this year. So, you know, I want to reiterate on the comments about the drought. I've been in a couple of water meetings this past week, and I will tell you that sitting in those meetings is a little bit scary. There are people that are starting to have conversations about what do we do if we find a need to have to truck water into Los Angeles County. This is a drought unlike one that most of us have ever been through before, because it includes the entire Western United States. The Colorado River, the snow cap in the Colorado Rockies is extremely low. The one of the big problems is because there has been drought for a number of years. The water is being absorbed into the ground in the Rocky Mountains and not flowing down into the rivers. The speaker spoke about the level at some of the reservoirs along the Colorado River. So this is something we really need to take a deep breath and think about, because a couple of years ago, we actually had some cities in Central California that they had to truck water in, and try to imagine the idea that you go out of your house with 5-gallon buckets to fill up to take back to your house. We've never lived through anything like that. Let's hope we don't get there. But if each and every one of us do our part to cut back as much as we possibly can, we'll get through this, and hopefully the rain gods will be on our side the next few years. So that's it. Thank you, Karen.
Tonight, I wanted to begin by saying that we extend our sympathy to the city of Duarte. Their Mayor Pro Tem Zaidal Paris-Karachi lost her battle with stage 4 cancer. So we extend our sympathy to her family and also to her city family as well. In addition, I would like to ask that tonight we adjourn our meeting in memory of Lou Zellers. I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Zellers and Rotary Club. That was just one example of his service to the community. I always thought of him as a gentle giant. He was large in stature, but also in character. In June of 1985, the Citrus College Community District Board of Trustees named him the 5th Superintendent President of Citrus College. He served the college 18 years before retiring in 2003. Among the highlights of his tenure was his commitment to increasing the institution's diversity. Dr. Zellers spearheaded several successful efforts to reach out to underrepresented communities. He also actively encouraged the recruitment of new faculty and staff from diverse backgrounds. In addition, under his leadership, Citrus College extended the programs and services it offered to students with disabilities beyond those that were required by state and federal mandates. He actively sought and received funding that allowed Citrus College to improve accessibility in all of its campus buildings, established an adapted physical education facility. And another area in which significant change occurred was when Dr. Zellers also helped to expand technology at the college. He was dedicated to increasing that. He initiated the addition of fiber optics on campus. I know that seems bizarre to us to think that they had to think about that and do it, but he led the way. This enabled Citrus College to expand telecommunications, link to the internet, and offer distance education classes. And thank goodness that all happened before COVID. Dr. Zellers also oversaw the opening of a data processing center and made sure that Citrus College curriculum evolved with the times to reflect emerging technologies. And prior to serving at Citrus College, he was also the president of Modesto Junior College. It's difficult to put into words the entire impact that Dr. Zellers made on Citrus College and the surrounding communities. definitely was influenced by his foresight and his passion. There is a building, as you notice, as you go on Foothill, that bears his name, but his legacy extends beyond that building and the profound impact and influence that he's had on students and faculty that will go well into the future. We're forever grateful for his leadership and service. So tonight, I ask that we adjourn in his memory. With that, I will turn it over to the city manager. If you have any additional comments, sir.
None this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney. Okay, well, with that, then we'll come back to the city manager to tell us about the COVID-19 reopening of the economy update.
So just a very brief update from me this evening, Mayor. We had previously heard that we may have to bring back face masking in LA County. It appears hospitalizations, while increased a little bit, have stabilized, and so has our infection rate. So at this juncture, it doesn't look like we'll have to move back. The main part of my conversation this evening is we had a couple comments on the state of emergency and how long it lasts, and sort of what is the hierarchy therein. And so the state of California, since March of 2020, is still actually under state of emergency related to COVID. Newsom still has special powers under that emergency that's been declared, although the number of executive orders have dwindled from tens, if not over 100, to just a couple of them at this point. Los Angeles County, which the city is a part of, is also still under a COVID related emergency. The city council has adopted more recently resolutions of emergency that allow us to do hybrid remote meetings this evening, which has allowed staff and one of the council members to participate remotely. That resolution is agenda item 8 in your packet this evening. And unlike our first emergency that we declared in March of 2020, whereby the city manager or myself has certain powers to come back after the fact for purchases, this resolution and intent is largely to still allow the city to declare that the county and state are under emergency, and we're adhering ourselves to allow for those this hybrid meeting approach for both city council and for our boards and commissions. So at this juncture, we don't have a specific end date from the state on when their state of emergency would end. Sometimes there's funding associated with those emergencies. The city was eligible and did receive more than $200,000 in reimbursement back from the feds during this emergency. At which point the county and state end their emergency, we would be able to end ours. In addition, the state of California is looking at changes to the Brown Act, which would allow us to have a hybrid remote meeting as a standing option. So we don't have final guidance there, but if that were the case, staff would return to the council and ask about, do you still want to continue the resolution of emergency? Which is the reason why we're doing it to allow the hybrid meeting. So with that, happy to answer any questions. I know it sounds crazy that since March of 2020, we've been under multiple emergencies that are all related to COVID, but here we are the end of June of 22, and we're still under many of those same orders.
Any questions, Mr. Boyer?
Well, actually, I appreciate the update, Adam, and I asked about this because we are in a situation with, in reality, we're one of the few states in the country that are still under a state of emergency. And it's a conversation that's going on at a higher level. And I think it's important that we encourage our representatives in Sacramento to take a hard look at whether or not this is still necessary, because there are some consequences involved in it. So I appreciate the update and look forward to further conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So on the state of emergency that the governor has, are they self-imposed? Can he get rid of them at any time he wants, or is it the legislature, or is it hybrid?
Oh man, that is a slippery slope. So generally speaking, under current rules in California, he can issue an emergency, and so long as the legislature doesn't pass its own rules to limit those powers, which other states have throughout this process, that will continue as long as there's evidence of a declaration needed.
That said a lot.
So he the state has done very well and legislature has been made happy with some of the funding opportunities that are there, which has largely allowed, I think, from an outside perspective, the state of emergency to continue.
So when he's disavowed himself of certain items for the Emergency Act, he did this on his own, not the legislature?
So there's various provisions, and I believe the state constitution and the various codes in the state of California that allow them to issue a declaration of emergency. So it's akin to a local level. For example, I'm allowed to declare emergency, and within a period of time, usually 72 hours, the city council has to affirm that or not. In our specific case, we did that when all the cavalcade of emergency orders started to pass through because we didn't want to miss a funding opportunity for support and help. So Newsom has a little more superpowers than a city manager does when there's an emergency being declared. Just for transparency, we made purchases twice. Once they were both related to computer equipment essentially and came back after the fact for approval, which is the only time we exercised any sort of emergency powers here in the city of Glendora.
So he has a bigger cape than you have.
Much, much bigger. Yes.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. All right, if there are no further questions, then that will take us to item 5, local SB 9 update with an overview of public inquiries, staff time spent, policy framework implementation, and a request for direction on whether to proceed with an ordinance based upon the policy. Senior Planner Friedel, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. I'm here to provide it's basically the same quarterly update on local SB 9 activity that we gave provided to Planning Commission at the June 7th meeting. Next slide, please. So just by way of some background, SB 9 went in effect this January, January 1st, and enables residential lot splits in 2 dwelling units per lot on each of those new lots in eligible single-family zoning districts without discretionary review or public hearings. When you combine that with the ADU law, you can essentially, and some have called it the quadplex law, you can have 4 units in the area of what was originally 1 single-family lot if you add ADU and a JDU to those 2 SB 9 units. Or if you split the lot, it's 2 units. And there's quite a few different combinations to get there, and our policy talks about that. So in anticipation of this law going into effect, staff worked with the Planning Commission and City Attorney's Office last fall to create a state law compliant policy framework to process SB 9 applications should we get any. The idea was to basically test the policy, look before you leap, and consider that as a basis where we could revise it for a future SB 9 code amendment. Have the city adopt its own amendment. Next slide, please. SB 9, so our policy takes a pragmatic approach by allowing 1 full-size primary residence on a lot and 1 secondary SB 9 residence, with the secondary unit subject to essentially the same standards as an accessory dwelling unit or ADU under our current code. The framework itself works with state law while providing objective standards aimed at public safety and protecting neighborhood character, hence allowing 1 full-size house subject to standards. So you don't have large house, very small, tiny house next to another large house in an existing neighborhood. The framework is available on our website as a handout. And if you go to the planning page, applications and forms, it's down in the middle beneath the ADU handout. Next slide, please. So Planning Commission asked for periodic updates quarterly, monthly at first, then quarterly as we've been moving through the year. We also need to track any SB 9 applications for state reporting on housing as well for HCD. Excuse me. Year to date, we've had around 50 contacts with folks inquiring about SB 9 for their properties for a total staff time spent, and we've been tracking this in a log we've made, of around 25 hours of staff time spent with these conversations. However, we have received no applications. We've had a few that looked pretty close to being complete and seemed like they could go forward, but for whatever reason, they haven't been submitted. I think one sort of barrier or issue is with the lot splits themselves. Getting lender permission seems to be a real hurdle for folks. So if they have a mortgage, pay to try to carve off half of your yard And I anecdotally, I had a gentleman come to the counter who's been working on an application, and he'd said that he had gone to 3 different banks, 3 different loan officers. None of them knew how to process that or what to do with that. And so eventually I haven't heard from him in a couple of weeks now. So I think that for the lot splits is an issue. I don't know why we haven't received any for the additional, basically a second ADU, if you will, under SB 9. Next slide, please. So we've continued to make minor revisions to the policy framework to, improve the graphics, clarity, based on some of the conversations we have. If there's some sticking point that's difficult to understand, we'll clarify it. The general ideas remain the same. General feedback has been pretty positive, and it has seemed generally understandable to folks. And we have had a few calls from other cities as well, looking at our policy framework. Next slide, please. I have a few questions. I mentioned at the quarterly update to Planning Commission, we made sort of a same status report saying that we haven't had any applications and kind of an update on the policy framework. We asked for Planning Commission's feedback to staff at the June 7th meeting, and their direction to us was to not proceed with a ordinance based on our policy at this time, as the legal situation and SB 9 interpretations are still fluid in California. So that was the direction provided by Planning Commission. So I guess my question tonight, does City Council concur with that feedback and direction that was given to us? And I'll stand by for questions and your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the council for questions or comments. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, sir. One question, if we are to choose not to do a ordinance resolution at this time and an application comes in, are we in a bind in trying to process that, or are you comfortable that we could process it without formal rules?
I think that's a great question. And we are comfortable that our policy framework, we wrote it and drafted it with consultation with the attorney's office to basically have everything that an ordinance would have based on our interpretation at that time. So yes, we could take an application. The state says we have to anyway. And we could process an SB 9 application and apply our objective standards in that policy framework.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm confident in that direction and don't see a need to add another rule to the game. So, and appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
The only real question I have is us choosing to not create an ordinance at this point. Does it in any way affect our ability to get our housing element approved?
That's a good question. I don't know on the if that's the case or not. I think that our policy framework was not designed to be a barrier to SB 9 applications, but to sort of be compliant with state law. So to that extent, our publicly facing information that the state can see says, hey, we allow SB 9. Some other cities have tried to, Pasadena, expand historic districts to the entire city, do some things like that. I think Pomona, I was talking to one of their planners, basically put a multifamily overlay over the entire city. We've not done things like that. So I don't think that the state would see our policy framework as something that would be a barrier to getting our housing element updated, because it allows SB 9 applications.
Okay, appreciate that. Although we may qualify as a coyote sanctuary, but that might be a stretch. Thank you.
Peacock Sanctuary. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you. Do you see the need to update the policy? You personally?
If the direction from, a couple of things, if the direction from Planning Commission and our City Council should change on the way the policy is written, or allowing a full-size unit, for example, then that would warrant a change. I think the other thing is we are curious what happens when we do get an application, to see what issues, we've had a lot of conversations on the phone and at the counter, and when we finally do get one, especially if it should have a lot split, I think how we process that, there might be some additional clarification that we have to do in the policy once we actually get to test it on a real world application.
I guess this is more of a push-pull question. Do we push on change on you, or do you pull us to change something based on your everyday experience?
That's a good question. I would think. it would be-
A little difficult,
Direction-
little
direction would-
difficult conversation there,
Direction, yeah,
Franz, yeah.
yeah, direction would come from
Much
planning commission
time
or council.
we push things down and not necessarily get things get pushed up.
Sure.
So we seen anecdotally from any other cities around us what they're experiencing?
We do get calls. We got more calls last fall as everyone was kind of scrambling to figure out what to do, put a policy framework, do an ordinance. So there were some calls then. I've talked to a few, I think I mentioned what Pomona was doing. We've heard about Pasadena. I talked to a planner at San Dimas, maybe it was 6 weeks ago, about a month and a half ago, and they had yet to receive an application as well. So I think that the lending and financing side of it has been probably something that the state didn't anticipate when they created the law as a barrier to doing this.
They will now.
So that's what I've heard. I have not talked to someone yet at another city or who's said, yes, we've taken some SB9 applications and this is what's happened and how we did it.
I would just add to that we've seen very, very little. In fact, I think, was it UC Berkeley that issued the report after the law was passed? And they said, this isn't going to do what the state thinks it's going to do for these exact reasons that we're getting the background for. Where land value is more expensive, for example, at the beach, they already have small lot ordinances, micro lot ordinances, and they've already done some of what's inevitably SB9. So it's interesting sometimes when there is a white paper from an institution issued that lays out exactly what cities are going to have. So I think it's important that as we receive applications to try to walk through some of the nuances of the process, because they are different than a traditional lot split. For example, right-of-way acquisition, other things like that are just different. So you'll be one of the first to know if we do receive an application.
And that's to follow on with that, planning commission did, that was something they mentioned at the meeting, was if we were to do these quarterly updates with them, but if we should get an application, they'd like us to come back at the next meeting and kind of tell them how it went. So we are prepared to do that. There's other things too, to Adam's point, that getting will serve letters from public utilities and things like that are also going to be challenging because you can't under state law require offsite improvements, dedication of extra right of way or easements or things off the property itself with an SB9 lot split. So getting utilities to some of these could be a challenge as well. So there's quite a few issues with it.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Thanks. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And Hans, thank you. Very, very good job. David asked what I was going to ask, so I'm comfortable with everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think just waiting and following in the footsteps of the Planning Commission's recommendation, I think is good. So thank you for keeping us updated.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, that takes us to public hearings. Item 6, a public hearing to consider a resolution adopting the annual assessment levy for Landscape Maintenance District Number 1 for fiscal year 2022-2023 and approving the engineer's report. With that, I declare the public hearing open and invite Landscape and Contract Supervisor Andrea Miller. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Council. Tonight is the first of 2 public hearings that I will be presenting, this one for the Landscape Maintenance District 1. The public hearings are required as part of the process to renew the assessment tax that is collected within the 7 zones being maintained by the city. The first official step was taken on June 14th when the council adopted the 3 resolutions, the first initiating the proceedings for the annual assessment levy, the second stating its intention to levy, and the third approving the preliminary engineer's report, which includes information on the zone boundaries, types of improvements done with these districts, the assessment methodology, and proposed budget. With the approval of these 3 items, notification was posted and published in the Examiner on 2 separate occasions. Next, we're here. This time around, the difference in CPI from the last March to this March is 8.5. However, we have a maximum increase of 5%, so there's no change here from the one that we saw on June 14th. Next slide. Okay. As for the fiscal impact, we saw a slight increase in the estimated direct and administrative costs due to the new landscape contract that we'll be talking about later on this evening. That'll be presented this evening. However, we are working with the contractors to lower that and get it closer to the actual assessment cost. In order to submit the assessments to the county for placement on the property tax bills, the city is required by law to follow certain steps, including the adoption of the 3 resolutions. So tonight, which we've already done. So tonight, staff represents 2 resolutions. The first to approve the levy and collection of the assessments, and the second to approve the final engineer's report. This concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. With that, I will invite the public to give testimony. Do we have anyone wishing to speak on this?
Thank you, Mayor. We have received no request via email and no request via the Zoom participants to give public testimony at this time.
And no speaker
And no
cards?
speaker cards, yes.
All right, seeing none, then I will close the public comment and bring it back to council for questions and comments. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And I have nothing to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Nothing to ask. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Andrea. I've said this before, I support this, but I think that the district, the zones, I'll get the term right, the zones that are not participating in this district, I've asked and gotten confident answer, but I think the people need to know they can't ignore this. They need to do something with their properties, and waiting 1.5 years to be forced to do something, I don't think we should look at that as a community. So I encourage them to go out and do the yard work or get on board and let the system work for them and on their behalf. And I hope that that happens and we don't have to be the bad side of the game to encourage them to be good neighbors. So, but thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, with that, I will close the public hearing and request a motion.
I'll move recommendations 1 through 2.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I will open up the vote and we'll do a roll call vote. Thank you. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to our second public hearing, a public hearing to consider a resolution relating to the levy of fiscal year 2022-23 assessment and approving the engineer's report in connection with the Streetlight Maintenance District Number 1. Welcome once again. Ms.
Thank you for
Moore.
having me again. Okay, tonight is the second and final public hearing for the assessments. This one's for the Streetlight Maintenance District Number 1. The public hearing, as I spoke before, is required as part of the process to renew the assessment tax on the collected streetlight district. The first step was taken in June 14th, and the adopted resolutions were again initiating the proceedings, stating its intention and approving the preliminary engineer's report, which includes information on the improvements with the district, assessment methodology, and a proposed budget. With your approval of those 3 items, notification was posted and published in the Examiner on 2 separate occasions. Next slide. The difference in CPI from last March to this March resulted in an increase of 8.502 in this case. Next slide. As for the fiscal impact here with the June lighting payment made, there was a reduction here. So we'll see the reserve ending balance is lower. So this one's a little, the number's a little different from June because we've had to make that one June payment, which increased our gross cost of improvements slightly. Tonight, I'm requesting that I'm presenting the resolutions, the first being to approve the levy and collection of the assessments, and the second to approve the final engineer's report. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This time I will invite the public to speak. Do we have anyone who has submitted a public comment card or is raising their hand on Zoom or sent an email?
Thank you, Mayor. We received no request to get public comment via Zoom or email or public comment card this time.
Okay, with that, then I will close public comment and bring it back to the council. Councilmember Friedendahl,
No question or comment. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
No questions.
Councilmember Alawas,
No questions.
All right, Mendel, it's up to you to keep the streak going. Councilmember
Uh,
Thompson.
Nothing to add, and I would move approval of this whenever you want to take that.
Okay, I will close the public hearing and request a motion.
I would move it.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is that open for a second there? There we go. Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Thompson, a second by Councilmember Alawas. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
And that carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
You know, I would, one request, would you please talk to your colleagues about the way to present public hearings so that we can get this type of cooperation moving forward? Really
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to the consent calendar. The items on the consent calendar can be approved by one motion without individual discussion unless a council member wishes to have a separate discussion. And I understand that there is a wish to discuss items 10, 11, and 15. Is that prior to vote, or did you want
I think
individual votes?
questions on 10 and 11 potentially, and then to pull item 15. For further a conversation, I believe is the
Yeah,
request.
I requested that we pull item number 15.
All right, then discussion on 10 and 11.
Who asked for 10? I asked for 11. My question on item number 11 has to do with our investment activity. And it was just a question in light of the massive increases in interest rates and a lot of things going on. Are we taking a second look at our investment policy, or are there changes that might be in the works, or is everything going to stay pretty much status quo?
Ultimately, it'll be pretty much status quo. The policy itself can't really change. It's dictated by the state of California, but we are looking to take advantage of as many high rate opportunities as we can. You'll see on the investment policy that we have unrealized losses, and that's because prior, when the rates were down, we had to buy things with really low rates, less than 1%. And now if we were to go resell them, we would realize a loss on that. But the city strategy is basically a buy and hold. So we won't realize that loss. It will get our principal back and earn any interest, even at the less than 1% mark.
Okay, so
once they mature.
So a lot of this is regulated by the state?
Yes.
Okay, appreciate it. That was my question. Thank you.
And I believe that it was you, sir, that had a question about 10 is related to Foothill Transit.
That was, we had that conversation during our briefing. Do you want to ask a question about the design costs?
Okay.
That's Stephen. Come on up.
Yeah, I was looking at the plan for the improved bus stops and the structures that are being brought in, quite attractive and in existing locations. And I had a question about whether we actually needed to hold out a possibility of a charge for $10,000 for design on something that I thought was came to us ready to assemble and put in place, and that we were actually doing the install. So.
Yeah, I have my wrenches ready. So and
I can help with that.
Yes, no,
You see, he brought his tool bag with him.
yes, yeah. Councilor Friedendahl helped us unload the parklets. So yeah, we're quite the
And
team.
they're done now.
So yeah, I would normally agree that we would something like this, which is prefabricated, doesn't require that much thought. And the Foothill Transit Grant, they do want as-built and design plans submitted before they approve. Actually letting the grant funds to us. That's to do with liability, ADA path of travel, making sure that we're placing the shelter in the correct position relative to the bus sign, those kind of things. So yes, it's $10,000 to tell us stuff that we probably already know, but that is what they're requiring as part of the grant.
As you know, I get into sticker shock easily. So, okay, thank you for that explanation. That's excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve items 8 through 14 and 16 through 18.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I do want to mention that there is an ordinance that's going to be approved as part of this. That is an ordinance amending section 2.40.010 through 2.40.160 to chapter 2.4 purchasing system of Title II Administration and Personnel of the Glendora Municipal Code. I will now open the vote and do a roll call. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That carries 5-0. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. All right, item 15.
Okay, thank you. Allison, I guess this is you. This has to do with the requirements that have put on us to install screening at all of our storm drains. And so in looking at the description and the design of the screening, I have concerns about when we get our major flood, water's coming down out of the foothills, that brings a lot of debris and things. Whether it be right or not, we have residents that actually go out and clean their storm drains from time to time.
David.
No. But it is a concern that when we put this in place, has that been considered? Is there a plan in place to make sure that we have the ability to clear those very, very quickly? Or are they designed in some magical way that's going to not cause them to be? Because the openings in these are going to be smaller than 5 millimeters, which are relatively small openings. So I was wondering if you could enlighten us on it.
Okay, yes, I'd be happy to, Councilmember. We actually are coming before council in the July 12th meeting to have the county will provide various services. And one of them, we're going to propose to go under contract with them to clean these out. All of our city-owned storm drains, and that they would come out 3 times a year for the wet weather and then 1 time a year during the dry season. So they will be maintained 4 times a year.
Okay, my concern is more of when we have those rains, there will be debris coming down out of the mountains and we're going to have to react to clean them immediately.
Correct. And that, I mean, part of what the county will do, I mean, we all become like eyes and ears are open whenever there's a potential upcoming storm. And so these cleanings would be scheduled during that time. And then just in general, we ramp up any of our, if we find debris, we've got all crews out clearing up any kind of potential debris, because it would be a problem before it even gets into the storm drain system. I mean, if it's that large, we would be seeing it above ground. So.
Okay, is there any type of policy or relief in place to actually remove these if we found ourselves with that type of a rush of water coming down from the mountains? Because
correct, there is. Yeah,
we've seen that.
As part of the stormwater, and just even in general, when when you see construction happening, you see it with the Gold Line where they've got all of the sandbags around the storm drains and the filter material. Well, if there is a huge rain, I mean, as part of the permit, we're allowed to take it out of the way to make sure that when there's a large amount of water that those are removed and work properly in the storm. In the old days in the stormwater, they used to call it the first flush was always the most contaminant. They've kind of gotten away from that. And so, we're allowed to take it off for the beyond the first flush, if you will. So.
Okay, I appreciate it. Just like I say, I do have some concerns as to how we might deal with that, because when we restrict that flow, it could create a problem for us. So thank you. That's all I had.
And we hope we have that problem. Yes. We hope and pray. And we know that the storm drains on Rainbow Drive will be cleaned more
Allison?
than 4 times a year.
Well, to their defense, Gary, I will tell you, since I am the proud witness of 3 of those storm drains, 4 of those storm drains in my location, they typically get out and clean ahead of the big gusher. So that's encouraging. But it's the day-to-day, week-to-week things that come down the gutter and gather that I'm curious about seeing what's that going to look like. And I'm optimistic that the street sweeper might be able to address that, but that doesn't always happen. So I'll take a wait and see, but I just caution us that be prepared. We may need to address that. And I don't know that we should incur additional expense to comply to some mandate. So let's see how it goes.
All right, we'll do. And then I'll just use this opportunity to tell people when you are doing your yard work and that kind of stuff. Again, we're not, non-stormwater should not be going down the drain. And so, if you have a gardener that blows their weeds off into the gutter, that will contribute to part of the problem. So I know even with our own, crews that you clean up your debris from whatever construction or gardening that you've done. So we hope that everyone will do that.
I live at the bottom end of a downhill slope, so I can guarantee you stuff comes. But, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion for item 15.
I move item 15.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. I will open up the vote and do a roll call. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That takes us on to new business, item 20. Authorize the city manager to execute contract option number 1 for transit operations and maintenance services to Transportation Concepts, Inc. for $1.807,080 over fiscal years 2023 and 2024. And to tell us all about it, Transportation Manager Stephen Matier.
Thank you. This might be my briefest presentation. This item before you is to exercise contract option number 1 of our existing operations and maintenance contract. The existing contract ends at the end of this fiscal year. As per the contract, we have 2 two-year options that we can execute. So we're looking to execute option 1, which will carry us through fiscal 24. And that $1.8 million is divided over the 2 years. So it's not 1.8 million each year. It's about 900,000 each year. Transportation Concepts is our current contract holder. They perform operations and maintenance on our vehicles. Throughout the 12 years they've been with the city, and especially since I've been here, we've received high marks from our customers, both in terms of our customer service, cleanliness of the vehicles, on-time performance. So really, they've been a great partner in delivering our service. And I'll note during COVID, the pandemic, when a lot of agencies just shut down their service, we were able to maintain our service. We kept all of our drivers. We provided dial ride service to dialysis. Our drivers made extra effort to make sure passengers were safe, especially because we're transporting very vulnerable people. And also too, we're rolling out a dispatching software, and as we move towards electrification, they've just been a great partner in helping us, through these different transition periods. As I mentioned with the customer service or the survey results, we typically do an annual survey. It's been difficult the past 2 years. We'll be looking to resume that to monitor the contractor's performance going forward. I believe online is Rich Rogers, who's the Vice President of Transportation Concepts. And so if there are any questions for him or myself, I'm happy to take them now.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you. I needed to unmute there. Michael and I, as well as Stephen, had a robust exchange this morning regarding the various things that we needed to ask him about. I am satisfied with everything he said, so I have nothing more to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Stephen. And I also want to extend thanks to the Transportation Concepts team for their partnership and keeping us in a good transportation operation. So understanding how tough that can be, I think that they clearly are doing a good job. So thank you.
Councilmember Alawas.
Yes, Mendel didn't have his Wheaties this morning. But thank you very much for this. You answered all of my questions during our briefing. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No questions. Thanks, Stephen.
All right, very good. Well, then with that, I will call for a motion.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Friedendahl, a second by Councilmember Alawas. Thank you. I will open up the vote and do a roll call. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That carries 5-0. Thank you.
All right, very good. That takes us to item 21, Glendora Bus Fleet Electrification, review zero emission rollout plan and approve related grants and purchases.
Great, thank you.
Welcome back again.
Thank
Mr.
you. I know,
Metier.
long time no see, right? Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I apologize. This will be a much longer presentation. So I'll move through it as efficiently as I can. So Glendora, we've the past couple of years been attempting to move towards fleet electrification. And so the items before you tonight are really are solidifying our plans and our strategy for moving towards implementing zero emission buses for our fixed route. Next slide. So a little bit of background. Currently, we operate what's called fixed routes. So those are defined stops on a regular schedule. We have paratransit, which is our dial-a-ride program. This is primarily focused on our fixed route side. What's really driving this is what's called the Innovative Clean Transit Rule. That's a rule that was adopted by the California Air Resources Board, and it requires large and small transit agencies to gradually transition to zero emission fleets. To support that, the CPUC with the various utilities throughout the state developed a variety of programs. One is in Southern California, Edison is the Charge Ready Transport Program, which I'll get into that a little bit later, but that is essentially a way for us to finance the infrastructure side of our conversion. We also have an active Mobile Sources Reduction Committee grant, which is also one of the driving forces of this, to buy a zero emission transit vehicle. And lastly, I think it's really important to note, we've been, especially as a small city, for us to be taking these steps. It's really admirable. A lot of cities are looking to us, even like larger agencies like Pasadena have noted our progress and sometimes our stumblings with this. So really, really the division of the council and the direction we've had here has really set us up to be leaders from a small city perspective. In terms of the policy context, this implements two items of our general plan. One is our circulation element to provide adequate bus service, and also the air quality element to promote and encourage the use of public transit. Also to, as I mentioned, to implement the Innovative Clean Transit Rule and to seek out new funding sources that are available. Next slide. So as part of the Clean Transit Rule, we're required to prepare a zero emission rollout plan that's attachment A in your report. This documents our fleet replacement schedules and costs, identifies the barriers. So in our instances, one of the main barriers is the lack of available technology for small format buses, as well as with the quirks of transportation funding in LA County, we are generally excluded from new state and federal capital funds. We went to the Planning Commission with the draft of our report in February 22, and we'll be bringing back a final resolution in September, which will allow us to submit to the Air Resources Board. So the key findings of that is that the selected technology, which is further down the recommendations, is the Green Power EV250. It has an adequate battery capacity to meet our service profile needs. It does assume a midday charge between the end of our morning runs and our midday runs. As I noted, funding is a major constraint for us, particularly on the capital side, as we don't have access to, for example, the new federal bill that came out. However, I'm happy to report Metro is actually letting us access some of those funds coming up over the next 5 years. So that'll be a way for us smaller agencies to meet some of these needs. One of the other also really great things is that we'll be achieving our compliance ahead of the Clean Transit Rule requirement. And also too, one of the things I'm particularly excited about is partnering with Citrus College on job training. Also, electric buses are going to be kind of the new technology going forward, or so this will be a way for perhaps some of their students to learn about how our buses operate. One of the things too is our neighboring cities with Pomona Valley Transit Authority and Covina. They have similar challenges as we do, so there might be opportunity for us to join forces, either sharing a yard, sharing resources, that kind of thing. Next slide, please. This is a layout of the proposed move to the Parks Yard. And this is really brought around by when we were first looking at the existing transit yard, there's not enough electricity and there's not enough capacity there to charge buses. Edison asked us to evaluate new sites and we came to the conclusion that the Parks Yard offered the least impactful move and also allowed us to put our chargers in there that met with their program requirements. So as you see here, the buses will be lined along the south perimeter wall. And what Edison will do here is they'll do pretty much all that work that's in the black. So they'll do the tie-in to their main power line. They'll do the transformer, switch gears, all the conduit, all the way up to the stub outs. And at that point, at the stub out, the city takes over and we install the chargers, or we have a contractor, electrician come out and do the installation. Edison does this it's okay. Edison does this at no cost to the city, provided that we meet certain requirements such as purchasing 2 buses, which we're doing tonight, purchasing the chargers, which we're also doing tonight, and then operating our service for 10 years. And also reporting on our data to Edison as part of their program requirements. Next slide. So to offset that, obviously these chargers we're going for are expensive. What we selected are what are called DC fast chargers. They can charge buses in about 3 hours or less. These are drastically more expensive than the level 2 chargers that you see at transportation or the ones that are over here in the City Hall parking lot. So we went after grant funding for Carl Moyer, which is funded through the AQMD. And we were able to receive just under $108,000 to offset that cost. Next slide. So as part of our zero emission bus procurement, this has been probably the single most challenging aspect of our move to zero emission. We had challenges finding the right size vehicles. The market for 35 and 40 foot, those are your Metro Foothill buses, is more mature. There's more options. There's more funding. For our size, we will never have that kind of ridership. So there's no need for us to buy that size. So it's been hard to find a bus that fits our profile. We did find one with Lion Electric, as you might recall last year. However, we were notified about 3 months ago that it would be a 30-month delay on the delivery of that vehicle. So as a result, we've had to pivot and to keep our Charge Ready program grants, to keep our MSRC and Carl Moyer grants to this EV250, which will be on the next slide. So this is the bus. This is a heavy duty bus. This is not a cutaway, which we typically use. This is a real bus. Their company is based in Rancho Cucamonga. They are assembled in Porterville, California. We were able to test drive this about 3 weeks ago. We were very impressed by its performance on our routes, particularly our hills. It gets about 106. It's advertised at 163 miles. Our rollout plan shows assumes a certain degradation over the lifetime. We would still be able to meet our service profile even with a degraded battery. The passenger capacity is 26 people. There's a 10-year design life. And as I noted, and I apologize for this, it's a 5-year battery warranty. So I apologize for the typo on there. Next slide, please. This is the funding plan. I apologize for this, is very hard to read. This is the funding plan for the installation of the chargers themselves. So what you'll see here is the Carl Moyer grant, our existing CIP money from Proposition A, which is dedicated only to public transit projects. And this is our plan right now to get that done this year. Next slide. And then this is the funding plan for the zero emission bus purchases. So in this coming fiscal year, which pending approval tonight, we'll be purchasing the 2 buses. The total cost is a little under $1.2 million. As you can see here, we do get a number of incentives, particularly from the California HVIP. We get about $276,000 towards the bus purchase. Next slide. And with that, it's a number of recommendations and actions related to that, primarily around executing grant agreements, as well as purchasing chargers and the 2 buses. So that was a lot of information, and I'm happy to answer any questions the council has.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
No, Steve and I had an opportunity to talk yesterday because, I had a lot of questions, especially around the zero emission or the battery electric buses. We've had some experience with them and there have been some hiccups, but I'm confident you've done your homework and this is the best direction forward for us. And if not, I will be calling you as I am following a bus as it goes up the hill and at 8 miles an hour.
I'll come out there and push it with you, I promise.
Okay. But hopefully we're getting past that. This is a mandate that's come down from the state, and honestly, it's time to be considering this. And I appreciate the fact that we're going to be ahead of the curve. Yeah. So no other questions. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. And I repeat that we asked about every kind of question that Stephen could possibly be asked, and he was able to answer them all. And I just want to affirm him for the leadership that he has given. There's a lot of moving parts here, and as he quietly said, we are ahead of where a lot of folks are. And that's a very exciting place to be. And we even talked about what the bus wrap is going to look like. And I can't wait to see that. So Stephen, you've done an excellent job here, and thank you for taking time to really respond well to what Michael and I asked you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kendall's going to be riding that bus while Gary's pushing it. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Stephen, for your report. Unfortunately, you know, I'm working with another agency right now on the Charge Ready 132 ports, but then also on the Charge Ready transport is a completely different animal altogether. So my hat's off to you from navigating this. So part of my questions are, as I had some more questions since we met this morning, is that this is highly configurable on the stub outs. Edison won't put the stub outs until you've identified what your use is going to be, your buses, your draw, and which charging equipment you're going to have. This is a 10-year program. The buses have a warranty for the batteries for 5 years. If something, God forbid, happens to these buses over this lifetime, and we have to go to a different direction, how willing do you think Edison's going to be of changing the allocation of power?
No, that's an excellent question. You know, I hope Edison, I know they were trying to be able to join tonight, so that might be a better question for them. You know, my understanding is that, you know, we obviously promised a certain, especially also with the Carl Moyer grant, we specified we would consume a certain amount of energy over the term of the grant. So I think, you know, my initial response is we'd have Green Power come out and fix the bus. They have a pretty good warranty. You know, being in Rancho, they're also very available to respond to any issues. If we had to, let's say, you know, there's some agencies that have had to, you know, scrap buses before their end of their useful life and you know, purchase new ones. I think we would attempt to cross that bridge at that point. Because again, that's, you know, it's hard to say what exactly we would do. I mean, I think also being a small agency, we would have a lot of hopefully flexibility and sympathy from Edison to, you know, maybe we extend the program over, instead of 10 years, we do to 12 to make up for that, you know, gap in service that we're unable to provide. So, you know, I know in talking with Edison, they've been very flexible with us because they know that unlike larger agencies that have more, you know, sophisticated staff and, you know, ability, you know, we're really kind of doing as much as we can in-house. And so, you know, I think they are very willing to work with us if we have issues with delivering the terms of our grants.
Well, since you brought that up on the 10-year TOU agreement that you have, that if we have a hiccup, we can be liable for the whole installation of the stub outs and everything. So is there any catch-all that we can have that our city attorney has looked at to help protect us on that?
And I think Bill can attest to, Edison was very clear with us, there's no changes to there. And I think because that would require, and explain to me, any change would require CPUC. This would be getting into, which you know, Bill and I have talked about, you know, it's unfortunate when we don't have an opportunity to make amendments.
They have a great negotiating policy. It's called take it or leave
Right.
it.
So basically tough it out for 10 years or we're going to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and I think given that hopefully the next 5 years, the technology has matured. And so when we are fully electric or zero emission on the fixed route side, we're not running into these issues. I'm hoping the battery technology is going to be advancing enough.
So on this bus that we selected, they didn't offer an L2 solution to this because a lot of school buses now are doing the L2s. It takes longer to charge, but it's not as expensive on the equipment or the energy used because you lose a lot in the heat transfer.
I'm apologize. L2, I haven't heard of that term. Is that the power back to the grid arrangement?
No. That's just a charging. It's more for your regular everyday vehicles.
Oh,
We're using
okay.
the
Oh, level
L2.
2 is that?
Level 2.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
And so some of the school buses are using L2s as opposed to the DCFC.
Right. Yeah. So the reason is that the battery size of this vehicle, it would take a very long time to use level 2 to charge. And also with given that we would likely, especially if we assume a full, you know, battery degradation that we lose, you know, 20+% over the next 3 to 5 years, having that ability to charge the bus in a couple hours to get it back into service, not worry about running out of juice going up Sierra Madre to pick up kids. I think that's, you know, something that's why we're selecting DC fast charging over, you know, a slower charge.
The last question I'd asked this morning, you're going to find out what's the replacement battery cost?
They have not gotten back to me. They let me, apparently you can replace with these batteries, you can replace the individual cells in the battery. It's not a full replacement, which might be cheaper. So once they get back to me, I'd be happy to pass it along to council. So I apologize for not having that for tonight.
Thank you, Stephen. That's all questions.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you. And Stephen, once again, a great job on homework, finding grants, finding money. It's very impressive. Bus looks good. I had a question about the battery. If in today's money, if we were buying batteries, what that costs. Haven't bought forklift batteries for a while. They can get pretty spendy, so it's kind of an alarming thing, even though you can rebuild cells. These are a little bit different, but yeah, it'd be interesting to learn what that is. And my only apprehension is not your homework, it's the technology of the product. And I guess I'm one of those dinosaur, fossil fuel guy, a dinosaur. So there you go. But anyway, great program, and I do support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again for all your hard work, for working on the grants, for moving us along on this. So with that, I will ask for a
If I
motion.
could, one more
Oh,
question.
One more
One question.
One.
Stephen, do you know, is the battery pack that they're using, is it proprietary or is it available from more than one source?
I believe it is excuse me, can't talk right now. Proprietary.
I stumbled through that.
I was
too.
gonna
You
say,
heard that, yeah.
I was gonna say property, but I'm like, no, it's not the right word. Proprietary. Yeah, I did try to research that because I know Proterra, for example, sells their batteries to a variety of different bus manufacturers. This is not a Proterra battery, so I do believe it is something that is their own battery.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'll move recommendations 1 through 7.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Thompson. I will open up the vote and do a roll call. Councilmember Alawas,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl,
Yes, please.
Councilmember Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that moves us on to item 22, award the agreement for landscape maintenance and weed abatement to Mariposa Landscapes, Inc. in the amount of $1,031,480,000 per year for 4 years and a total of $4,125,920,000. And once again, for a encore performance, landscaping contracts manager, Andrea Miller.
Thanks for having me back. I did. So today I'm here to talk about award of the landscape maintenance and weed abatement contract that will be hopefully going to Mariposa Landscape. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background. The contract was awarded to Priority Landscape in June of 2018 for $201,816 annually. It was a 4-year contract that expired this fiscal year. And throughout the 4 years, we've had 4 amendments to increase the scope of the work. That included additional sites and additional increased services. Next slide, please. As for the weed abatement, that was a separate contract that was awarded July 19th, and it was awarded an amount of $110,800, and that was a 1-year contract. Midway through the contract, COVID hit, and we had to temporarily extend the contract due to a lot of the people were sick and they weren't able to get staff in. And so we had a tough time getting them back. However, this past year, this fiscal year, we did get them back to finish up the contract in the amount of $71,730. And so now we've completed the agreement, and that was with Orozco Landscape. So with both of those ending, we decided to combine both the large scale weed abatement and the landscape maintenance and went out to bid on April 7th, 2022. We had a mandatory bid opening and we got a pretty good turnout of about 11 or 12 contractors. And then we had the bid opening on May 3rd, 2022. Next page. So these are the bids. We got 5 that came in, not extremely far apart. All were found to be responsible bidders. And after reviewing the qualifications and experience, staff recommends entering into a contract with Mariposa Landscape for the next 4 years with 3 1-year extensions. Next slide, please. As part of this increased services, we've added 21 additional water sites, as well as the right-of-way weed abatement, which is currently done by in-house crews. And also it's going to include the open space areas, that most consist of large acres of land that we clean, that are done every year. And that was the portion that Orozco typically handled. This contract to go from July 1st of 2020 to June 30th, 2026. Next slide, please. And here are the funding sources that we will be using to cover this contract. That concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you, Mayor. Nice presentation. Just a question. Once this is done, how many landscape contractors do we have in the city? Only
It
the
will be one.
Only one then?
Yes.
Have we ever had a situation where we have more than one?
Yes, we have. We've had, when I first got here, we had one for the assessment sites and another for the rest of the landscape areas.
So it's going to be much easier to manage these folks now.
I think so. And they're doing everything, so.
Wonderful. Thank you. All the questions.
Councilmember Thompson.
Madam Mayor, thank you. The presentation was very, very well done, and I appreciate the specifics that you have outlined in terms of the process that was employed, and I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Thank you, Andrea. Great job. No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Andrea, I do have one question. Were any of these landscape companies located in the city of Glendora? Do you know?
Well, no, they're not local. Their owners were born and raised here, Roscoe, but other than that, no.
Okay, that was the only question I had, but great presentation and you're batting 1,000 tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I will entertain a
I'll move
motion.
recommendations 1 through 2 or 1 and 2.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you.
Second.
Oh, I think Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem Boyer beat you to the punch there. Councilmember
Okay,
Thompson.
that's fine.
Thank you. That's a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Boyer. I will open up the vote and do a roll call. Councilmember Alawas.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Yes.
And Mayor Davis.
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Our time has ended.
Yes. All right, that takes us to item 23, award a contract agreement to ACCO Engineered Systems for replacement of chlorine metering pumps at San Gabriel Disinfection Plant and City of Glendora Water Yard in the amount of $320,205.69. And with that, I invite Associate Engineer Mai to report. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Actually, this is my first time here, so. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'm giving the presentation to recommend the contract award for the chlorine pump replacement project to Echo Engineer System. Next slide, please. So there will be 2 different locations for this project. One will be at the San Gabriel Disinfection Plant located at the city of Ayusa, and the other one will be at the water yards. Next slide, please. So now let's take a look at the existing condition of those pumps at the 2 facilities, which also will explain why we recommend to replace those pumps. So first, in the San Gabriel Disinfection Plant, there was an incident happened last year on June 19 that caused all the 5 pump damage. And the staff actually carried out immediate corrective action, try to minimize any impact to the surrounding area and try to rectify the incident. And after that, the city already purchased 2 pumps to restore back the operation of the plant in San Gabriel Disinfection Plant. However, there are still 3 pumps actually out of services. While in the water yard, currently there are actually 3 pumps under operations. However, they were purchased in 2004, which means they have been in operation for 18 years. And as recommended by the manufacturer, the pumps actually good from the range between 10 to 15 years. So basically on the pumps over there actually reach their useful lifespans limit. And that's why we also recommended to replace on the 3 pumps in the water yard as well. So let's discuss a little bit about the scope of this project. So the pump installation will be done by Echo Engineer System. So basically, Echo has the competitive bid IQC agreement with Sourcewell, and the city actually can utilize the Sourcewell agreement to get the proposal from Echo. So the staff actually already work with Echo to review the scope of necessary work and also determine which items should be included in the proposal. So for this project, we will replace 3 pumps in San Gabriel disinfection plant and another 3 pumps at the water yard. And there will be 2 additional chlorine pumps on standby for maintenance purposes. So that during maintenance, all the pumps can be repaired or maintained without reducing the capacity of the treatment system. So this project will help to reduce the maintenance cost and reduce the downtime during operations while improving the working efficiency and the safety of the treatment system. Additionally, new pump with on the same kind will definitely ease the maintenance purposes and process between the 2 treatment facilities. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And the total cost of this project will be $320,000. So due to the nature of this project, the staff also requests for another 10% contingency to be added to the project cost, which makes it $352,000. So the project budget has been approved in fiscal year 21-22 mid-cycle from quarter CIP Fund 530. And the remaining budget will be used to upgrade the SCADA system, which will be recommended to the City Council in the future. So on that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and this on the recommendation related to this project, and I'm ready to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Alawas.
Thank you for your presentation. How long will it take to do the switch out?
So basically, right now we're still working. After the 2 days, so we work closely with the vendor to decide how long we take, because definitely right now we have some kind of supply chain and some limited in the supply. So after we are working more closely with the vendor, we definitely know like the exact day on when we're going to have this being done.
Are we looking at months, weeks?
To be like more closely, I would like Chisholm to answer the questions in this. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Councilman Alawas, so the actual construction work will take about a couple of weeks. And so that will include the actual switching out of the pumps and also the upgrading of the control system, our SCADA system. But the entire process will take 2 weeks, and our San Gabriel plant will be down for the entire 2 weeks. So we will switch to purchasing Metropolitan Water.
Does that include testing after you switch everything out?
Yes, it does. Testing and startup.
Okay, so it's only about a 2-week delay?
Oh, yes.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Friedendahl.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. In June, we lost a couple of pumps for a failure of some sort. Are we confident we learned what that cause was so we don't repeat it?
Yes, absolutely, Councilman. So in addition to replacing these pumps for a number of reasons, as Michael mentioned, number one, they have exceeded their life expectancy of about 10 to 15 years. However, in addition to that, we will be also installing a pedestal that will uplift these pumps about 2 feet. In the event, heaven forbid, that we have another spill, these pumps and motors will be protected. Additionally, as part of a long-term fix, as part of our infrastructure assessment, we will be installing a number of alarm systems, spill alarm systems to alarm us of when we have additional spills. That way we can respond in a more proactive manner.
Okay, excellent. And having seen the site, the pedestals are a great idea. It's a nice facility, very clean. So the 2 pumps that we replaced that were damaged, and these 3, that makes, there's 5 in that location, is that correct?
There's 5 total pumps, but while we're at it, we'll also, so at the San Gabriel plant, we're actually replacing it with 3. And then at our water yard, we have another chlorine facility. So we're going to be replacing it with 2 pumps at that facility as well. So while we're at it, again, we've decided to just go ahead and replace our pumps at each of our chlorine facilities, being that it has exceeded its life expectancy.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Councilmember Thompson.
Thank you. And Michael, for your first time, you did an excellent job. So cheers. This is a statement, glad that staff is there. But I really appreciated the water report that we got this past week that outlined the quality of water and everything. So thank you for doing that. I hope everybody took time to read it and appreciate that. And I do like the fact that you're thinking like I would think, and you see a couple that are going down that are kind of rough, and so we're gonna, we're gonna take time to fix them all. And I think that's really smart. So thank you. And with that, I support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
So question, is this all of our pumps, or do we have additional pumps that might be getting to the end of their lifespan as well?
So this would be the entirety of all of our
This is
pumps.
it. Okay. I appreciate that. It's the only question. Good presentation.
Thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion.
Move recommendations 1 through 4.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Councilmember Alawas, a second by Councilmember Friedendahl. I will open the vote and do a roll call. Councilmember Alawas?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes.
That carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item 24, review and provide direction on city council policy relating to the reorganization of city council appointed boards, commissions, and committees. City Clerk, Communications Director Kathleen Sussman, welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Davis and council members. Tonight, I'm here to request that the city council review and provide direction on policies relating to the city council appointed boards, commissions, and committees as it relates to their reorganization. Due to recent changes in state law, the cities need to change the city elections from March to November to provide some consistency as we move forward due to new state regulations. The city council conducted a meeting on March 22nd to review the policies associated with the city council reorganization. At that time, the city council unanimously voted to adopt a resolution and a policy which changed the city council reorganization from March to December of each year. During that meeting, various comments were raised regarding the reorganization of city council appointed boards and commissions. Some of those comments were to see about aligning the council or the boards and commissions reorganization with the councils. Another one was to maintain the current reorganization schedule and allow newly elected officials time to get used to being used to their council roles and responsibilities before having to make their first set of appointments or going through that recruitment process. In addition, some additional research was looked into in there, and thanks to the library directors, Janet Stone, she has sent me an email that has let us know that if we look at changing the dates of when our commissioners are appointed, the Library Board of Trustees is set by the Education Code, which regulates that members of the board shall be appointed at the end of the current fiscal year. So if we decide to move forward with changing the reorganization on the terms of the other commissions, the Library Board of Trustees would have to be remaining with their terms expiring June 30th and with new terms taking place on July 1st. There are no regulations associated with their reorganization itself, just relating to the terms itself. Currently, the boards, commissions, and committees reorganization takes place in July of each year. The boards and commissions are set up very similar to the city council. The reorganization is set by the Glendora Municipal Code, while establishing the exact terms and manner by which that occurs is handled by city council resolution and policy. It should be noted that if the city council desires to make changes to the term, that will require a change to the Glendora Municipal Code, and that would require an ordinance. With that, Mayor, I have concluded this presentation. I'm available for any questions and to provide for future discussions. There are 4 options listed before you. The first option is to make no changes. The second option involves the timing of the reorganization only, and that would be a resolution change. Option 3 would all be a term of office and timing of the reorganization, which would require an ordinance and a resolution. Also noting that the Library Board of Trustees terms of office would not be able to change. And option 4 is to provide me any other option you can think of.
All right, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Boyer.
Actually, I thought we had resolved this already, and I went back and rewatched our meetings and realized we really didn't. So I guess my question is, I don't have an opinion one way or another on this. Can I ask what prompted this to be put on the agenda tonight? I mean, was there discussion at board levels or were there questions about it?
So we've received questions from the council at various meetings about the process when we talked about moving the council elections to November, what that would do to boards and commissions. Subsequently, the boards and commission members began asking, are they going to change our term dates to co-term with city council members? Those questions also came up. And so when we looked at the guidance and comments by city council, we have comments such as, hey, when you're a brand new city council member at your first meeting, maybe that's not the best time to appoint board and commission members. Maybe that 3-month lag or whatever it is a good thing for us to consider. To the alternative, which is to the extent possible, we should co-term as many things as possible. And since we didn't have clear direction and boards and commission members began asking about their own term limits, we decided to bring the conversation back to city council to see if there was any a direction you may have from a policy standpoint, or if you just want to continue with the status quo and we'll move forward. As Kathleen mentioned to me earlier and to the council, that during the holiday season, it is harder historically to recruit for boards and commission members when we've had vacancies because people tend to be busy with their families and rightfully so. So if there is a policy decision to be made or changing, let us know. And if not, we'll continue on the same path forward and notify the boards and commission members that their terms stay the same.
Okay, well, first off, the library people are such rebels. They have to throw a monkey wrench into everything. But, one of the things about it, we do the appointments in off election years. So I don't think we would be making appointments right after a new council member was elected. Is that correct?
Again, the library board is the only, yeah. But yeah, for everybody else, it's.
Yeah, we got special rules for the people like that. But yeah, for everybody else, it would be. But again, I think coordinating this with the fiscal year makes some sense. And let's face it, the only reason we moved city council elections in November was because Sacramento kept changing them on us.
Right.
So hopefully we won't have that same issue and become as crazy as they are. But yeah, my opinion would be to leave it alone as it is. I think that works unless there's a reason to make a change, but that's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freudendahl.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kathleen. I agree with option 1 of no changes. And my rationale is in the event there was a year with an election, you don't need new commissioners, new council members, and staff time and orientation and hand-holding and training, guilty, all at the same time of that many more bodies. So let it spread out that work a little bit better. And I think if it's not broken, leave it.
Councilmember Thompson.
Well, this morning at 7:55, I thought that option 1 meant what Gary started out saying, that we had changed this and leaving it the same would be at the end of the year. I was advised that that's not the case. So Gary and David, are you saying leaving it the way it is that we appoint in March, April, May, somewhere around there? Or what does actually option one mean? Because
I'm gonna
I
have
was,
Ms. Sussman answer that for you, Mr. Thompson.
okay, all right.
Option one means that the board's terms end June 30th and new terms start July 1st. So that means we will start recruiting in March, and depending on how that recruitment goes, sometimes we have interviews in April, May, and June. Sometimes we don't get enough applications, so we go back out. So that's why we start a little early to try and make sure we have plenty of time to get the positions filled.
Okay, then I'm good with option one, just keeping the course the way it is. Thank you.
Mr. Alawas.
Thank you. So on the screen there, you've got 4 options, but 2 option number 3s. And on the staff report, we have 3 options only.
So what I did is after I included options for term, if you needed to change the actual term of office along with the timing of the reorganization. Option 2 is just if you want to say, we're going to keep the term the way it is, but we're going to have them reorganize in December or whatever, and at another time. It didn't incorporate the term change, which is requires an ordinance.
So your recommendation is to make your life easy and do option 1. Don't do
Yes.
anything.
Yes.
Please, council, don't do
Yes.
anything. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would concur with leaving it as it is because already we have the rebels at the library. And so if we changed it, then we'd have all these different things which your office doesn't need. And it's already hard enough herding cats up here to
Hey,
try to
hey,
remind
hey,
them of
hey.
when elections and appointments are. So I say, let's simplify it and leave it as is.
I'll move option 1.
Second.
Thank you. That is a motion. I believe that's been opened. No, hold on. There we go. Motion by Councilmember Alawas, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And a second by
Thompson.
Councilmember Thompson.
It's
I
not
will
on my
open up
ear.
the vote and do a roll call. Apologies. Councilmember Alawas?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedendahl?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Yes.
That passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sussman. All right, then brings us to member staff closing comments. Mr. Alawas.
Want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July and be safe.
Mr. Thompson,
The same word. Thank you.
Mr. Friedendahl.
Question for Kathleen, please. And I think we heard, and I've been hearing in rumblings that there was a proposed candidate forum
I
to be
was just
held on
going to
June
announce
30th.
that.
Would you please do so? Thank you so much.
So I'd like to announce that we're going to be holding a pre-nomination period candidate workshop for city council candidates on June 30th at 6 p.m. in Bidwell Forum. So anybody who is interested, please come over to Bidwell, join us. We're going to have a demo by Netfile who helps us do our filings regarding campaign contributions. They're going to do a very short demo. We're going to go over a brief overview of what running for council looks like. And the directors and legal will all be there to answer any questions. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. 6 o'clock. I sent you a meeting.
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem.
No, just a reminder, we've talked a lot about water and we haven't seen any for a while, which causes extremely dry vegetation. So celebrate the 4th without lighting the mountains on fire, please. Thank you.
Yes, there are no fireworks, no fireworks. Let me say that again, no fireworks in Glendora, not even the cute little things that you think are safe. Mr. Raymond.
Just wanted to express my thanks to staff over the last two council meetings, really three. We've had a lot of major items that have come before the council that take months before they come here this evening. It's been great to see different staff coming up and presenting. Great to hear a council tell some jokes back to staff when they're up there, and just to really appreciate the inquisitive conversation and questions we've had. And again, just a sincere appreciation to staff for their major work. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Winder. Any other staff in the audience? Any comment? All right, well, with that, then we will adjourn at 9:36 in memory of Dr.